Welcome everyone to today's Win Science webinar. My name is Karen Hecht. I'm your moderator for today, and it is my pleasure to welcome you to this webinar's topic, Navigating Leadership, Insights from Scientific Research and Operations Execs of Companies Big and Small. We have a really exemplary group of leaders in the industry for you today. But before we begin, I'd like to go through some information about women in nutraceuticals, whose vision it is to achieve economic and social equality in the global nutraceutical industry. The mission is that WIN offers tools, networking, visibility, and mentoring to create an environment where women have an equal place in the leadership and evolution of the global nutraceutical industry, and where they can reap equally personal fulfillment, social, and economic benefits. WIN's core focus areas are leadership, to increase the number of women serving in leadership positions; growth, to grow the number of women in science and research; investment, to expand investment opportunities for female businesses; and opportunity, to ensure better opportunities for rising female leaders. A few housekeeping rules for us today for the webinar. This webinar is currently live, but it will be recorded and available on demand. So please check the WIN member portal sometime after this webinar to view it again and share with your colleagues if you didn't get a chance to view it live. There will be a question and answer panel, so please do submit your questions using the Q&A tab, and you can submit those throughout the webinar as you think of your questions. We will address them in a live Q&A at the end of the panel discussion. There is also a chat window, so you can use this chat window in case you need any assistance with technical issues, and someone, Tracy will lead you through that, and Tanil will lead you through that if you need any help. Thank you to them both for that. So without further ado, allow me to introduce you to our wonderful panelists. We have joining us today Rachel Jones. She is the Executive Vice President and Chief Merchandising and Science Officer at GNC, a member of the Executive Leadership Team. Jones oversees a cross-functional group of 50 associates at the forefront of GNC's commitment to helping consumers live well. Responsible for continued innovation across GNC's product portfolio, she also leads the product development strategy of high-quality, trusted, and cutting-edge solutions that produce results for consumers. We also have Andrew Shao, who serves as Senior Vice President for the Global Regulatory and Scientific Affairs at Niagen Bioscience, and has spent over 25 years in the global nutrition industry, assuming leadership roles in various nutrition, scientific, regulatory, and government affairs functions in both for and nonprofit organizations. We also have Amanda Williams. She is the Chief Science Officer at Invite Health, where she leads and oversees research and product development. As a radio show host for 10 years, she is recognized as an authority in educating and helping others achieve wellness. She holds an MD from Xavier University and a Master's of Public Health from Nova Southeastern. With close to 20 years of experience in nutraceuticals, Amanda is a trusted leader in medicine and nutrition. Amanda is also a member of Women in Nutraceuticals. Thank you all so much for joining us. It's a pleasure to host you. So without further ado, we have some questions here that we're really excited to get your insights on. And the first one is concerning leadership across company sizes. So my question to you is, how are leadership roles and responsibilities defined in your organization? And how do you feel that leadership structures and needs vary with organizational size? And we'll start with Rachel.
Sure. Thanks, Karen, and thank you for having me. For those of you who don't know me, I'm with GNC, and our company is about, in size, we have about 10,000 employees. And at our corporate headquarters, we have about 300. And we have a pretty traditional hierarchy. So we have a CEO who runs the show. We have an executive C-suite, so chiefs that report directly to the CEO. So together, we work with the CEO to set the company vision, set the company goals that ladder to the 3-year LRP, and make sure that we have clear enterprise-wide goals and metrics for the organization. But each of us as chiefs oversee multiple departments. So the levels right below us are typically VP levels, and those are our department heads. So they're really setting the strategies, the goals, and the plans for their full department. Underneath the vice presidents, we have directors that direct very specific functions within the department. So, for example, I have a vice president of quality and regulatory, but he has a vice president of regulatory, or I'm sorry, a director rather of regulatory and a director of quality control. And below them, we have the managers that manage specific things within the functions. So, for example, on my merchandising team, I have managers at a category level. So, I have a manager for protein, a manager for vitamins, and so on. And below the managers, we have individual contributors that really do the work, very specific work. You know, having been at GNC for 21 years, I've seen us go from a pretty small, nimble organization to a large corporation. And one of the things that I miss and appreciate when we were small, we were able to get away with a little bit of a flatter structure. We were nimble. Individual contributors could wear multiple hats, and really there was no issue about stepping on toes. It's just everybody kind of chips in to get the job done. As you grow and the company becomes bigger, the departments become larger, you have a risk of silos, redundant work, and inefficiencies happening. So for my journey, it was really important to develop operating procedures that helped cohesiveness across functions within the organization. And just to leave you with one example, a big part of our business is sports and active nutrition. Right? So we have a sports and active nutrition pod that has a charter and aligned goals. That's a highly cross-functional team. We've got science, we've got marketing, we have merchandising, and so on in this pod. So they're working together cohesively on interlinked goals across functions.
Very insightful. Thank you for that. That gives us a good idea of how a large company structures its leadership and aligns its goals. And how about you, Andrew? Can you
Sure.
describe how things work at your company?
So, similar to what Rachel described, we have sort of similar titles and layers, but much smaller. Our company is about 100, a little over 100 employees. And we have a very unique business in that we both supply an ingredient to customers, B2B, but we're also a B2C brand. And that makes us a little bit unique in the space. And obviously our portfolio really revolves around kind of mostly one product. In my case, the quality, regulatory, scientific, and medical affairs and R&D functions report to me, and I report to the CEO. We have similar sort of layers of the executives, and then VPs and directors or senior directors, very similar to what Rachel described, all the way down to scientists that perform a lot of the analytical work, a lot of the QC work that we do at our Longmont, Colorado facility. But when it comes to leadership, my philosophy is that leadership is not a function of rank or tenure or title or salary. It's not a function of that. It's a function of whether and how, to what extent you are looking out for the interests of the organization, for the people beside you, above you, below you. And so my expectation is that everybody is a leader, no matter what their role or how long they've been with the company or where they're at in their career. Everybody has to step up and lead in some capacity. And it doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to be in charge of a lot of folks, especially at our company. We're a very lean operation. We have a lot of things going on, a lot of different areas of interest. Everyone has to step up and lead at one point or another. And so I don't see leadership as a function of some sort of hierarchy, even though we do have those layers, right? For practical purposes, everyone is expected to step up and lead in some manner.
That's a beautiful philosophy. And I think it gives everyone a sense of ownership when that's the expectation, and brings the best out of everybody. So thank you for that insight.
Sure.
And Amanda, how about yourself? How do you think about leadership in your organization?
Well, we've had a paradigm shift in our organization over the past year. So our leadership roles and the structure in general has changed drastically. Um, Prior to that, we had very much a top-down leadership structure, with three partners, and it was kind of stayed within that realm. Now we are very much into a mission-driven leadership structure. Being that we're small, I know Rachel just touched on back in the day when GNC was small. So Invite Health, we're very small. So I wear many hats. And as far as, my day-to-day title, yes, I'm the chief science officer at the company, but I'm also managing people. I'm also doing product development. I'm doing, brand ambassador work. And I think one of the takeaways that I have found in my journey, through different roles at Invite Health and at other companies as well. I was in a very large company prior to Invite Health, which had traditional leadership structure, the way that Rachel described how GNC is structured out. For me, I look at leadership in the same way as Andrew. I think everyone should have ownership in their job and what they do and lead in that way. And I look at educating and teaching and learning as part of that. And so for me, representing the small company here on today's panel, it's one of those areas where I look at our entire team as working as one unit for one common goal to achieve whatever mission that is that we've set out. So, and with the new mission-driven structure that we definitely have many more things that are aligned as far as the way that I think of leadership, with having strategic initiatives and strategic planning. And for me, that works really well for the way that my brain operates. So that's all I will say on that.
That's great. It's interesting because you've all, in one way or another, mentioned mission driven, that sense of ownership that everyone should be a leader, and sometimes issues with silos. So I can see how, as the organization grows, there's an increased risk or challenge to communicate what those goals are, and help everyone understand how their contribution and their leadership and their pod or department or whatever you call it contributes to the whole, and that they're a part of a whole. So is that something that you find you work a lot with in your organizations?
Oh, yes, absolutely. Even a company our size, I'm not sure, Amanda, how big yours is, but we're 100 or maybe 110 now. I can't keep track, but even we're dealing with communication challenges and silos, mainly because we have offices
Right.
in different places. We have a remote workforce. A whole other time for a webinar is how to deal with that.
Good point.
But
Noted.
we continuously need to work on it. And one of the things that I do for every new team member that joins our group is I have a mandatory one-on-one where I say you must know that what you do in your job every day contributes to our mission and our purpose, and you have to be able to make that connection, that what you do makes a difference, and why you wake up every morning to come to your job. And if you ever don't feel connected, if you ever feel that connection is not there, you have to come speak to me, and we got to fix it right away, because everyone has to know how what they do every day contributes to the higher cost that we have.
Yeah, just two things for us. One, communication is critical, right? And across functions, we tend to all speak different languages.
Right.
We use different words, different things on the written goals might mean different things to different people. So we think it's really important to document and repeat what the goals are with a common vernacular, and then have those team meetings and breakouts, to Andrew's point, and just have some conversation. How do you think that you can contribute to the outcome tied to this goal, and make sure that early and often we are driving that clarity through communication.
And yes, Andrew, we are a little smaller than you guys. We're about 50. Um, we are working tirelessly every day on getting away from the silos. We had big silos, even though there was only 50 of us. We had large silos prior to our new structure. So communication is key across all of our, while they may be small, little departments, and of course, the language barriers. When I'm working with our tech team, I have a science background, so maybe my wording is much different, and so working on that clarity and the understanding amongst all of our team members, I think, is essential to success.
So thank you for pointing out that even in small organizations, silos can still occur. It's not unique to larger organizations. And I think it's really important that you all touched on communication and speaking different languages, the different departments. I hope that we'll be able to come back to that in the next question as we talk about skill sets, especially from the point of view of, everyone here trained in science coming through to a leadership role and needing to communicate cross-functionally. So before we get to that question, I do want to put up a poll question to our audience so we can better understand where they all are coming from and what their goal or where they are in their organization right now. So the question is, how would you describe your current role within your organization? And the options are senior level, mid-level, entry level, or if you have another answer, please elaborate in the chat. I'll give everyone a moment to respond there. Okay, last entries here. It looks like the majority of our audience is mid-level right now. So that helps us understand where everyone is coming from. And probably they have some sense at this point of needing to implement leadership structures and organizations that require some cross-functional work. So I think that'll be interesting in our next question, touching on skill sets, which is, how what are the most critical skills and competencies that leaders trained in science need to develop at different stages of their careers, from first-time managers to C-suite executives, or for our audience today, mid-level? And I'll start with Amanda. What are your thoughts on this?
I obviously had some struggles initially. I will be the first one to put that out there. I was trained as a doctor. Doctors have a particular way of looking at things and wanting things done like right now. So for me, I had to work on my own emotional intelligence. And I think that through doing that and even doing a certification in mindfulness, I learned a lot about how I manage my own emotions and being under stress, how that can project onto others. So for me, I think that that's one of the biggest skills for that blending or the merging, because I'm still tapping into my science every day, but I also have, I wear a manager hat. And so having that emotional intelligence, being able to be an incredibly good listener, I think, is key. I have found that throughout my career, how many times you can sit in a Zoom or you can sit in a board meeting and you're like, I don't think that they listened to one thing that I just said. So, I think listening is key, and really tapping into understanding that everyone is different that you work with, and being able to gravitate towards their needs at that time, understanding how to approach maybe difficult situations. And I think most of that taps into, once again, that emotional intelligence, which to me is a skill that is required if you're going to be an effective leader.
Interesting. So really learning to start managing people and not just projects. That's something maybe a bit new. And what about in your experience, Rachel? What skill sets and competencies have you had to develop in your leadership roles?
So early on, especially in a science role, we all come to the table with some sort of scientific background, a knowledge base, and access to information. But as you progress in your career, you're having to make fast decisions, and you may not have the time that you need to access all of that information and read through it as you originally did. So I think it's really, really important at the very early stages of your career, and even maybe as a new manager, to make sure that you are building that arsenal of information that you need for you and your team to be successful as you move through your careers, right? So whether that's credible references and resources, technical information that you need access to very quickly, or an external network of partners, right, that you could phone a friend and reach out to, because the more you climb up in the organization, the less time you really have to do to focus on that, and making sure you're also training your people to know and maintain that system that allows you to move up in the organization. The second piece that I was thinking about and tying back to the last question was really about communication. I think sometimes it's easy for technical minded teams and individuals to stay within our scientific or technical bubble. But I think it's really important to ask questions, to understand the company and colleagues' goals. What are they trying to do? And really think through what we are doing, and the skill sets that we have can help your colleagues, can help the company, and figure out how you can spotlight that in a consistent way, that so people can understand the value you and your team are bringing to the company. And part of that is mastering the art of translating the complex scientific concepts or ideas to business relevant or company relevant communication. It's really, really hard to do, and it takes time, right? So don't give up. But I think it's really important because it does help showcase and spotlight the relevance of you and your team, and helps you grow within your career. And then lastly, I did want to just talk about collaboration, because we talked about silos a little bit, right? It's important not to silo off. Again, spotlight the work, showcase the value you can bring. What's interesting is that the early stage of my career, right, my first team was my science team. Right? We were very functionally focused. And now I'm sitting in a C-suite. My first team is the executive committee. So between our chief operating officer, our chief supply chain officer, our head of marketing, et cetera, I'm working with people towards common goals that come from very different places than I do. So just really, really building that leadership competency and collaboration at every level, no matter where you are, I find is very critical.
Yes, amazing. I mean, be curious, ask questions. These are things scientists are well trained to do. And now you just need to do those same things outside of the realm of science. So I think that's something that hopefully a lot of people can relate to on this call. And Andrew, I'm excited to hear what you have to add.
Sure. Wow, what great insights and guidance from my two colleagues here. Completely agree with everything you guys said, and so you're saving us time by me not having to go through it all. So the one thing I would bring up is what I call, or what's referred to as a growth mindset, or even something a little bit more elaborate, like a paradoxical mindset or quantum mindset. And what this means throughout life, throughout business, maybe even a scientific setting, right? You're faced with conflicting dynamics, right? They seem to be opposing each other, in conflict with each other. How are you going to navigate through all these different things to make a business decision, let's say, like Rachel was referring to, or dealing with colleagues with emotional intelligence, like Amanda was referring to, when things seem to be in conflict with each other? Situations, life it's not binary, it's not black and white. Usually, how you manage something, how you respond, how do you deal with adversity or difficult situation or conflicting dynamics is somewhere in between. Mm. And it takes a growth mindset or a quantum mindset to sift through all of that and still say, okay, this is going wrong, that's going wrong, this is outside of my control, that's outside of my control. And these things are in conflict with each other. The question is, what can I do? Or what can my team do that's under our control to make progress, to move things forward. And I think it's essential for success really in life, but certainly in business, because business is not a finite game. There isn't a winner and a loser. It goes on and on and on because colleagues come and go, companies come and go. You win some, you have a great product with some great sale, and then not so much. It all evolves over time, and you've got to maintain a growth mindset, which is not everything is perfect, not a panacea, but we can get through this. We can make progress. Here's what's under our control. Here's what I'm going to do to try to move this forward, as opposed to that's all done. It's over. We're defeated. Go home. Forget it. You won't advance in your career that way, right? So it's having that growth mindset, but it's even more. It's like a quantum mindset where you're dealing with a lot of different things. And of course, as you rise in an organization, like my colleagues here, you're dealing with more of those things that are in conflict, a lot of different issues you have to deal with at the same time. So that's the only thing I would add to what we've already heard here from my colleagues is that growth mindset or quantum mindset.
Amazing. I haven't heard that term before, and I quite like it. And I think resilience is another term I'll add. And I can't help but think back to my time in graduate school and how important resilience was, and how familiar this concept of overcoming failure, right? Overcoming a failed experiment and a negative outcome, learning from it, repeating, moving forward. I think that that's something that applies to all of life, right? And not just science and leadership. That's great. Some really great insights there. And I think that'll take us very well into the next question, which is, what strategies or practices have you found most effective for professional growth and career advancement? So as we're thinking about a growth mindset, what are some of these things that have helped you advance, that you've consciously and with intention approached to improve? We'll come back to you, Andrew, since
Sure.
yeah, already on the
So
growth mindset trajectory.
I'm a very team-oriented individual. If any of you know who Simon Sinek is, it's someone who I follow very closely and read his books and listen to his podcasts, and he's written a book called "What's Your Why?" and then find your why. What's your why is what's your purpose? Not what's your job or what do you aspire to, but what's your purpose? And really my purpose, my why, if you will, is to help teams get from where they're at to where they need to go and help team members experience success along the way. And it took me almost my whole career to figure that out. But that's been the case from the beginning. I've just been able to articulate it recently. But from a career growth standpoint, I realized that, that's led to a lot of my success is putting the organization first and putting team and team members first. There's a book, I think it's not just a saying, book called Leaders Eat Last, or Great Leaders Eat Last. And this is the philosophy that I've had throughout, my career. And I do believe that serving the organization, it's what can I do for the organization as opposed to for me. I think ultimately reflects much better on you internally and externally and can lead to more opportunities and more success ultimately along the way. So that's the philosophy that I think I've had, and I highly recommend it to others here who are listening in or who are watching. I have my team read different books and articles and movies, and one movie that I'm a real fan of that I would highly recommend is Remember the Titans. And the transformation that the team goes through, putting all these dynamics, these conflicting dynamics aside to come together and have success as a team. And there's a particular scene in that movie where one of the players says, no, I'm looking out for me. I'm going to look out for me. I'm going to get mine. And that is not the recipe, I don't believe, for career success and career growth. Ultimately, they got past that, as you know, for the movie, and it was based on a true story, a huge success. But anyway, that would be my recommendation as far as leading to fulfilling, but also far and rapid advancement.
Amazing. He brings the references. Don't forget those citations, everyone. And I think that's a really beautiful and difficult thing that you probably have to train yourself to do because so often we're pitted against one another in environments that aren't, so nurturing or told that we need to prove ourselves all the time. So
Yes.
having that team mindset and that leaders eat last mindset, not a
I
simple.
should just add it's human nature, right? To say, what am I going to get? How am I going to advance? How do I get to the next level? Another reference for you, you may not be a Tom Brady fan, but he did co-author a Harvard Business Review article maybe a year ago. You can look it up, where he documents his struggles in trying to keep the team focused on the team goal while individual players are bombarded by their agent, by their spouses, by their family members saying, oh, you need to get yours. You need to get yours. Forget about this team. You need to get yours. And how he struggled with that. And he worked tirelessly to try to keep the team focused on the team goal rather than individuals getting theirs. Anyway, it's quite a good read. I highly recommend.
Amazing. Definitely take a look at that. Amanda, how do you feel about the competencies and skills and practices that you feel have helped?
Well, first on Tom Brady, love him. So a huge University of Michigan fan. So I've always been a Brady fan. So as far as the competencies, this is something that I've learned through the years is that people trust people, not necessarily organizations. And I think that taking that mindset and spreading that within our organization, people are coming to Invite Health for what reason? Because they like the service that we provide, they like the products that we offer, but it's the people behind that. And I think that sometimes that can get lost along the way, and we get so focused in the everyday tasks that we're doing. So for me, one of the strategies that I've always tried to utilize, even when I'm doing radio shows, is to have that personal connection. And I think that that resonates with people if they trust in you and what you are explaining and educating them on. And this isn't just because we're all science people here. This, I think, is applicable to any, business that you're in. I think that you have to make those personal connections. And without that, you don't get the ability to grow in the way that you may think that you're going to grow. I recognized that early in my career, and I think that's probably what took me maybe away from traditional medicine was there was not a lot of personalization in medicine. It's kind of a cold environment. I tapped into that in my third year of medical school and realized maybe this isn't the perfect fit for me, but I'm already into the weeds now. But that's one of the reasons why I truly love this industry, because I find that everyone who's in this industry is very passionate about wanting to educate and wanting to make a difference in someone's life. And to me, that is a strategy that we should all be trying to tap into each and every single day. It's not about, as Andrew mentioned earlier, one individual leader or what your title is or what your salary is. It is, what is our overall objective? What is our goal? How can we make a difference and an impact in someone's life, in someone's future, in someone's wellness? And the strategies that I think work the best with that is being open and out front and accessible. And that's what I try and do with my team, that, it doesn't matter what their questions or their concerns are. If they have a problem with a customer, whatever the situation may be, I think that having that open dialogue is definitely a strategy that works.
Love that. Definitely agree. And how about you, Rachel? Competencies and skill sets that you
Yeah.
feel are key.
Wow, great stuff. So first and foremost, Andrew, a huge proponent of the we over me approach. And so couldn't agree more with what you said. And Amanda, you touched on some things that are really, really, I think, critical. One is sort of like trust and relationship building, and two is transparency. And I subscribe to all of the above. I wanted to talk a little bit though about some practices that I do think helped me, because sometimes we forget to take care of ourselves a little bit. And, every year when we do goal setting, company goal setting, team goal setting, I think it's really important to reflect upon setting some personal development goals. So when, I knew early on I wanted to get involved in a little bit more of like public speaking or media or PR support, I made sure to embark upon a game plan to do some media training. As I moved into some more business-centric roles and felt a little uncomfortable about what managing a P&L is supposed to look like, I made sure to set some goals for myself and actions to build my financial and business acumen, right? So I do think while 100% team comes first, company comes first, don't forget to have those personal development goals that are going to help you be stronger for the team, stronger for the company, and help you grow in your career. The other thing that I built over time, and look, many of us could be extroverts by nature, some are introverts, but organizational courage and the confidence to speak up, I think, is really important. Getting outside of your comfort zone, not being afraid to throw out new ideas, not being afraid to put yourself out there. Hey, I can help with this. Because one thing that I noticed, nobody is going to hand you a prescription for your development plan and your career path. You have to make sure that you're taking that control into your own hands. And there's been situations where I ended up in roles that I don't think anybody was thinking about me for those, but I just mustered up that organizational courage to say, hey, I really think I can help with this, and this is why, and found myself going from a scientific leader to at one point running international merchandising and marketing. I had no idea what I was doing, but I was able to instill confidence in the organization that I was committed to what I was going to do for the company and the team. So I think at the end of the day, don't be afraid to pave your own path and be a cause in the matter and courageous in putting yourself out there. I think a lot of my people development work and working with my team is getting them to get a little bit more comfortable doing those things.
Beautifully said. And I think courage, you can be afraid and do it anyway. And you can recognize your strengths and understand what you bring to the table and still not be a finished product and try something that's outside of your comfort zone. And that's how you'll grow. And you're never going to be a finished, complete version of yourself, right? So just bring what you have today, give it a go, and learn from it. And I feel like that has always been fulfilling for me. And I've gone to things afraid and nervous a lot of the times. So it's still, I love that advice. So thank you for that. Um, Let's see. So I also wanted to ask you all about networking and industry because we did touch upon, leveraging and leaning on your resources and on trusting people. And so I wanted to ask, how do you maximize value from networking events and what are some of your favorite industry engagement opportunities? And the why networking? And let's start with Rachel.
Yeah, sure. So normally when I think about where I'm going to be engaging throughout a year, I do try to tie it to both my personal and professional goals. And an example, one of the things as I stepped into, again, more business leadership, one of the organizations that I ended up belonging to and attending some networking events was called Women in Retail. Actually no scientists, right? Really not any product developers. It's more, marketers, executives, e-commerce experts, et cetera. But that helped me sort of get in the realm of sort of my new world and network in that way. But every time I do go to something, I do set a purpose, desired outcome that I am trying to achieve at that networking event. And I try to commit to at least 3 actions that I'm going to do following the event. In terms of my favorites, I've become a fan of some of the smaller, smaller to mid-size or more intimate events. One that comes to mind, and by the way, I haven't been to a WIN event yet, so I can't list it as my favorite, but I will change that very quickly. But one of the things that I enjoyed, I'm not sure if any of you have been to the Sports and Active Nutrition Symposium. And what I loved about that event, it's fairly small, highly focused in one realm, like sports and active nutrition, but a nice diverse group of scientists, researchers, companies, regulatory experts, et cetera, that can just really get together and share ideas and thoughts around one centralized topic. And the forum of that also has a combination of panels, speakers, but then a lot of like informal networking as well. So I used to earlier in my career would love to go to the big shows. Oh, I've got to spend every single day that I can at Supply Side West or Expo West. I can't miss it. But I've become a bit a fonder of these smaller, more intimate experiences that just helps you build relationships and really get into specific topics. And so those are my favorite types of events at this stage of my career.
Perfect. And Andrew, what are some of
Yeah.
your favorite networking
So
opportunities?
the first thing I would say is my experience, and I think you're seeing it here with this panel, is that leaders want to help. Leaders want to network with folks and offer guidance and maybe mentor. I mean, that's what I enjoy the most out of what I do. So I'm interested in helping folks. So don't be shy. Be considerate, of course. People's busy schedules, but don't be shy. When it comes to networking. Just some advice there. As far as events, something that you guys might be familiar with is what the Nutrition Society has started to do for the past couple of years now at their annual meeting is something called speed mentoring. And what they do is they have all grad students and postdocs and even industry scientists sign up in advance, and they all show up in a ballroom. And what the society has done is selected mentors, leaders from government, academia, and industry, a series of them. And each of them sits at a different part of the ballroom in the middle of a circle of chairs. And they have folks come in and, they give you a lanyard actually to designate if you're government, industry, or academia, the mentors. And then folks just sit around for maybe 10 minutes, introduce themselves, chat about, get insight, get guidance, and so forth. And then they rotate. They rotate, and they do it for a couple of hours. And it's what they call speed mentoring. And I found that to be a really great experience just for me, because in a very short period of time, you mentioned being kind of intimate in an intimate setting, Rachel. It's a very intimate setting. It's short, but it's an intimate setting. But I get to hear from all these different folks from different careers and different backgrounds. In my case, they're trying to understand what's the pathway to industry, let's say from government, from academia. And then for the other mentors, maybe they're looking at a different pathway, right? From government to academia, from academia, from industry to academia, something like that. But I'm, representing the industry. And so it's a real fascinating experience for me. And I think I'm offering a lot of insight just in a short period of time to folks who really have no idea about how to navigate that transition.
Mm-hmm.
And so I find it very valuable. I believe I've connected with a lot of them on LinkedIn following that, and always willing to follow up with them after the fact. So I find that to be really excellent. I wonder if we could do something like that that's more industry centric. It's like a speed dating, speed mentoring type of thing in one of the trade shows or something like that. But I found that to be really, really valuable in a short period of time.
That's a very nice idea. I think we could certainly explore something like that in the future. And Amanda, how about yourself in terms of networking and events and industry outreach? How do you approach this?
Well, I did attend a WIN event here in Fort Lauderdale, and it was lovely. It was a wonderful time, and just get to talk to everyone who attended that. So that was my first WIN technical event. As far as in this setting, I will say this is why I joined WIN, because I don't feel as though I was networking enough within the industry. I have always networked within academia because I was a professor at one point in time. I clearly have, associations with Institute of Functional Medicine and the American Academy of Anti-Aging Medicine. So I always attend all of those conferences and attend their expos. And that's what I gravitated to because I wanted to hear, what's new in that world. Even though I'm in, the nutraceutical world, I was still learning that, but I was tapping into what a lot of the MDs were researching at the time. And so that's where a lot of my interest was driven from. But now that I'm wearing a much different hat in the organization, I recognize I need to expand out and I need to start networking within the industry because that's the best way for me to continue to grow. And I think that when you're going to be networking or attending any type of conference or, expo, you have to go in, of course, as Rachel said, with goals in mind, that you're not just kind of aimlessly wandering around. Like, what is the goal? What is your intention of why you're there? What do you want to walk away with? For myself, am I going to supply side because I'm interested in a particular, new raw material that we may use in a formulation? Or, what you always have to have those defined goals. And the other thing that I think is important whenever going to any type of an event is to have follow-up. If you have an important, even if it's a 5-minute conversation with someone, have that follow-up because it's very easy for us to go to networking events and say, oh yeah, it was great talking to you. We'll catch up again. And then you don't. And that could be an opportunity to gain more valuable insight to help not only you in your own career growth, but the company in general that you're working for. So I think that networking can be utilized as kind of a tool to enhance your leadership and to continue to grow. And I love learning. So to me, anytime you can go to any type of expo or any conference, it's an opportunity to just engage more in a topic that you're interested in and learn. So I always say, I don't know everything in this industry. I never will. But every time I do an event like this, learning from my colleagues here, it makes my job that much more fulfilling.
Yeah, beautiful. Yeah, so interesting going to these networking events with specific intentions, following up afterwards, having specific things that you are going in there wanting to learn, but then also maybe staying open and being curious. You can't always anticipate when you talk to people, outside of your comfort zone and network, you can't always anticipate what you may learn. So I think being open is also nice. Does anybody else have anything to add on this topic?
I just want to build on the openness. I think it's important for us to be humble and open and understand we can learn from anybody. I learn from my kids, right? And sometimes, and especially in technical roles where you're highly credentialed, it's easy to want to stand on your soapbox. And there's a time and a place to do that. But just approaching these things, being open to learning from anybody and open to those surprises is extraordinarily valuable.
Wonderful. We do have a few questions from our audience, so I'd like to move on to the Q&A session. And one question we got is about communication. Do you have any advice for effective communication within a company, say to communicate your goals both up and down, and what are some of the ways that you can do that cross-functionally?
I'm a big fan of just, the simple, like, what am I doing? What am I bringing to the table? Why? Why is this important? And how could it possibly benefit the greater good? And what could it mean for different groups? And allow that conversation to happen too. How do you think this could help you? And let people contribute to how those things could apply. And we have different, you can do this through conversation, cross-functional meetings. And then even when we are doing some presentations, it's getting crisp and clear on like the intent of what we're doing, the rationale behind it, and how it ultimately can help.
Yeah. Yeah, I was going to say similar to that is keep your audience in mind. I think Rachel mentioned, we come from technical backgrounds, very used to talking technically, using certain acronyms and so forth. And we're dealing with business colleagues that have no idea what this is or what it means, So it's translating your information in a way that the audience, and it can be at different levels or it can be from different functions where they understand it. In some cases, like with executives, many are very visual.
Mm.
And so instead of having lots of bullet points with lots of detail, which is what we're used to seeing as scientists, you've got to put things very simple, visual, because executives have a million things to deal with. They can't distill it all. You got to distill it, for them. So that becomes an important communication tool. The other thing is kind of what you're doing, how does it contribute to sort of the bottom line? The overall purpose of the company, or is it revenue? Is it related to revenue? Is it related to cost savings? Is it related to brand reputation or brand awareness? Business outcomes that folks on the business side can understand, as opposed to what you might talk about scientifically. So it's translating it for your audience.
Yeah. I've noticed the visuals thing also, actually. And I think it comes back what you just said to if you don't understand what the company goals are, then you need to go to leadership and ask and get clarity on that. I have a related question about how do you overcome the barrier from being a scientist to navigating administrative positions and understanding how to manage those?
I think that for me was probably the biggest obstacle. I think I'm perhaps in many ways a natural educator. I think oftentimes you go in the path of whatever it is in health field, and for myself it was medicine. I think that you tend to have those traits as a natural educator, but then to be in kind of a business environment, it was kind of the blending of the two. So for me, I think using effective communication skills was first and foremost, and understanding that everyone that I interact with, while it be we have a very small company, has different learning skills. And, maybe I'm talking to one person in the tech department and they're a visual learner. So, it's speaking to your audience in the appropriate fashion. If I'm talking to someone in our accounting department, does she do better if I, write everything out for her and put it in an email form and then follow up with a phone call? So things like that I've had to learn throughout my years as my career has progressed, and being that I've been in different industries, as I mentioned, from academia into now this world. I think that, effective communication and understanding others' learning is essential to that. You can't go on assumptions. Assumptions will lead to failures. And even especially in a small company where, you think, oh, I'm just going to tell this person this is what needs to be done. And then somehow the ball gets dropped. So I think effective communication, knowing, okay, this person may need a little extra prompting to get this task done, and then some follow up on the back end. I think that that's also important to recognize those things, and it holds yourself accountable to what you're trying to achieve.
Yep. Know your audience, communicate to their
Audience.
needs. Yeah. And there's a question here that I think is going to touch a nerve with a lot of people. This person, our audience member, describes my boss always encourages us to be leaders within our team and our departments. However, I feel like it can be hard when you don't have the title, and it can come off as being bossy and a little bit of an imposter syndrome, especially as a woman. How would you approach colleagues in trying to be a leader but not perceived as bossy?
Well, I saw that come through, and I've been sort of thinking about a response on that. And, in our case, in our company, medium-sized company or whatever, we're growing, we're diversifying, we're getting into other business areas, And so what that means is we don't have the infrastructure, we don't have the processes, we don't have the tools in place to support all of that. So there are gaps. There are functional gaps. There are RACI gaps. RACI, roles and responsibility gaps. We don't have the person. The person hasn't been hired. The function hasn't been created to address that gap, but it's there and it needs to be filled. And something that you can do really at any level is take ownership to try to fill the gap, not step on people's toes, not boss everyone around, but we think we need a new function. We're not sure. We need a new position. We're not sure. What you can do is take ownership to convene folks, the right folks, to start asking the right questions and trying to develop answers to those questions. You can take ownership of that. That's one way to step up and assert your leadership without seeming bossy. You're not trying to solve the problem yourself. What you're doing is taking ownership to start that process. And that would be for that individual. That's the recommendation that I would have to try to avoid that misperception. Identify the gap and try to at least lead the convening of people to fill the gap.
There's some resources out there about, influencing without authority. What are some keys that how can I influence without authority? And of course, kindness, being inquisitive are some of the tips that come to mind. Sometimes their questions can be very powerful. So you may have a very direct thought or preconceived notion or something that you want to bring to the table. But sometimes asking, hey, have we thought about this? Because, and coupled with why you think it might be a good idea, as opposed to coming across in a bossy manner, can go a long way. So
Excellent.
just felt compelled to add some of that because
Yeah.
that's definitely something I've had to build over time, that ability to influence without authority on a regular basis.
And I think that that is definitely something that a lot of women in particular can find themselves in that position where you feel like, am I coming across bossy? Am I coming across, too pushy? And it can be a challenge. It definitely can. I think that, taking ownership in what you're good at, you should own that. And, you become part of that equation when you can look and say, I really excel in my team at this. So maybe if I work on collaborations within the team and I can show them, hey, look at, I did this portion of this. What do you all think? And if you approach things in that manner, oftentimes it's not going to come across as pushy or bossy. And it's kind of leaving ego at the door and establishing once again that trust in people. That's not just for brand specific, that's for coworkers as well. And I think that if you start to build that trust within your coworkers, then it's never going to come across as a bossy or pushy situation. I think they'll come across and say, hey, let's go to her because we know she's really good at this. And this is the person that we need to turn to for this role.
Yes. Well said. Yes, I agree. Become a resource for everyone, and
Become a
that's what a
resource.
leader is. That's what leadership is, right? So you're assuming that role even if you don't have the title yet. Let's see. So I think that, oh, here we are. There's another nice question again about communication, which I think is very much key. So, how do you recommend improving communication when one side reaches out or voices concerns, but gets no response or the concerns get brushed off?
I find that direct communication is the best in those situations that I've come across in my career. As I mentioned, we had a paradigm shift within our company, and the previous structure was very much that way. I could reach out, and sometimes I didn't hear back. Are they being dismissive to a thought or to an idea that I have or to a problem that I'm trying to address? And so I find that direct communication, not working off of the practice of, okay, well, I sent them an email, maybe they'll follow up in a couple of days. If you don't hear something, do a follow up, whether that's a secondary email or, if you are within the same location or picking up the phone and not being afraid to do that because it shows that you have an action item that you are working on. And at the end of the day, everyone's goal is for the betterment of the company. So you shouldn't be afraid to address or have hard conversations as they come up.
I wish we could keep going, but we're at the top of the hour. There are so many great questions. We will try to follow up with any unanswered question. I just want to thank so much all of our panelists. And you gave us so much to think about, so many wonderful insights. And we do have some WIN events coming up. I just want to quickly mention those. Please keep your eye out. Supply Side Global, there is a reception, a WIN reception on Tuesday, October 28th at 3:30 p.m. Pacific time. We have a brand new WIN mentorship program starting. Applications are open if you want to be a mentee or a mentor. It's such a wonderful program. I just finished as a mentee as well, and I got so much from this. I really do recommend it to everyone with an open heart if you're looking to implement that growth mindset and talk to some amazing people in the industry to help you in your next step in your career. And also, please check the WIN member portal consistently for local and virtual networking events, as well as upcoming educational events like this one. Once again, thank you to our audience for joining us today. Thank you to all our panelists. I've so enjoyed hosting you, and I wish you a wonderful day.
Great. Thank
Goodbye.
you, Karen. Thanks,
Thank
Rachel
you.
and Amanda.